Welcome back to Breakfast with Bob, Boston Marathon Edition. My name again is Bob Babbitt. We're presented to you by Hyland's Leg Cramps. Stop the cramps, not your race. NormaTec Pulse Recovery System. We're at the 120th Boston Marathon, and a gentleman who won back in 1968, longtime Runner's World main man, Mr. Amby Burfoot. How you doing, Amby?
I'm doing wonderful. It feels like I've run all 120 of them, but it's great to be back at Boston always, as you know.
So your philosophy was, after you won here, when did you start running every 5 years?
You know, it took about 20 years or so. I think in 88 I thought, well, I'll run them every 5 years. So I did 88, 93, 98.
Yeah.
That kind of thing got going. And then, of course, as we all know, we came to 2013. And being one of the old slow guys,
yes,
I was in the group that was stopped a mile from the finish line. And it's funny, because we didn't know what it was. With the buildings, we did not see anything. We did not hear anything.
Wow.
We thought that there was some, protesters stopping us from reaching the finish, and we were pissed off.
People were upset, yes.
We were not happy. And then you find out later what the tragedy was there, and you feel sort of ashamed of yourself for being full of wanting to finish Boston.
But at that point, then you had to come back in 14.
Everybody wanted to be back in 2014.
Yes.
As you remember, it was the single greatest foot race in the history
Ever.
of the world. Just the emotion, and everybody was so into that race, and that gave me 2 in a row, so I figured, hell, I'll try and make it to 2018, which would be 50 years from my victory. So I've been back. This will be my 4th year in a row now.
When you were on the course in 2014, when did you hear that Meb had won the race?
Oh my God! First of all, I'm in a wave that starts quite a bit behind
me
everybody
too.
else. So I'm like at the 8-mile mark. I hear Meb has won the race. People are talking about it on the side. I'm saying, oh, you people are out of your mind. You can't tell a Kenyan from an American. You know, Meb didn't win this race. It was a stacked field. Maybe he had a good day. It was 5th.
Yes.
So it was really just astonishing to finally realize that it had happened that way.
It was funny because I was running along, and I heard one of the guys, one of the announcers along the way going, and in the women's race, somebody named Meb won. And I'm like, wait, what? What? Wait, Meb? So I stopped and I figured, oh my God, Meb won the race.
Yeah.
There was no way that Meb could have won that race.
I literally didn't believe it because, as you and
Hollywood
I know,
script.
Yeah, exactly. And also most of the people who are reporting on wherever,
yes,
or what you're hearing the side of the road, they don't really know.
No,
they're just picking up something. Meb was the first American or something.
Exactly.
So that was just beautiful beyond belief.
Now, when did you get in the running?
I got into running because I had let me go back a little bit.
Yes.
My father was a YMCA director. I grew up playing all the sports. I had an obsessive personality. I practiced like crazy, and I got really skilled at stuff like baseball and basketball.
Right.
Played basketball in high school, which was 10th grade, my school. Last guy on the JV team, but I made the cut. But when I got to high school, you find out it's not just, I can shoot with both hands. But you got to have muscle, you got to have power, you got to have speed, you got to have strength.
genetics.
You got to have genetics. One day the basketball coaches ticked off at us because we have a bad practice. So like every coach, he sent us out to run the cross-country course for punishment
right,
after a bad practice. And all of a sudden I find out I can beat the other basketball players around the course. So then I come back, I'm like, well, maybe I could be a cross-country runner and be good, or I can continue to be bad at basketball. So I made the switch and it worked. And
at that point, when you get when you're in college, there really isn't any, okay, I'm going to run in college and go be a pro and make a living. There was none of that at that point.
There was certainly none of that. But back to high school, I had the ridiculous good fortune that my high school cross-country coach is the best runner in America for a decade. John J. Kelly won the 1957 Boston Marathon, 2 Olympic teams, 8 consecutive national marathon championships, and he's my high school cross-country coach.
Right.
And not just that, but he's the most brilliant, progressive man you've ever met in your life in the early 60s. This guy had an organic garden in 1962 when nobody else knew what organic gardening was. He was reading Silent Spring and railing against pesticides. He was riding his bicycle to school rather than driving a polluting car to school where he taught. So he had it all. He was way ahead of his time, but a tremendous inspiration.
Was he the inspiration for you running Boston?
He was the inspiration for everything. Literally,
really?
Bob. I mean, literature, writing, the whole works. I ran and won Boston in an Olympic year.
Yes.
When everybody else skips Boston to concentrate on the Olympic trials,
Right.
which for me was later in the year. I'm like, I don't know. I'm from New England. Boston is just as important as the Olympic trials.
Sort of still is.
I'm going to run Boston. And I did, and I had my one perfect day of running in 1968. Got injured about a month later and dropped out of the Olympic trials that summer.
So when did you know that you were going to win that race? I mean, going into it, did you even have a thought that, I could win this thing?
The weird thing is, and you know me well enough
Yes.
to know I'm not really a blowhard or a braggart or anything, I had a strong feeling I was going to run really well that day because I had gotten into this strange, wonderful condition that has since been named flow. And from mid-March on, every run I did was like the easiest, best run I'd ever had in my life. I told 2 people very softly that I thought I was going to win the Boston Marathon. I felt like I was jogging for the first 13 miles of the course, and then I decided it was time to turn it into a race. It got hard the last 13,
Yes.
but it worked out well.
So after you win, nowadays you win something like the Boston Marathon,
Right.
and it's endorsements, and did
course.
your world change at all?
Yeah, after the Boston Marathon, they gave out beef stew, and I was a vegetarian. So, the prizes were
hosed.
ample. Yeah, exactly. Totally hosed. Totally hosed. There was absolutely nothing then. I got invitations to a few races,
Yeah.
and that was about it. But, being a Boston Marathon winner is something you can be pretty proud of carrying through life. There
Forever.
aren't a lot of those titles to go around.
No. And you went to college with Billy Rogers
And Jeff Galloway.
and Jeff Galloway.
Exactly.
Look at all the athletes who came out of your college.
A tiny little school in Middletown, Connecticut,
Wesleyan, right?
named Wesleyan, which people who run Boston think we went to Wellesley because
Yes.
it's on the course here.
Yeah.
It was Wesleyan in Middletown, and Jeff was there a year ahead of me, and I was there 2 years ahead of Bill,
Billy.
but we were all there together. And
Did you all run
have
together there?
Oh, of course we ran together. Of course we ran together. Jeff was the real leader at that point.
Yeah.
Then I took up the mantle. I tried to get Bill to train, and he was too lazy.
He was lazy, wasn't he? Smoking cigarettes.
He was into smoking and dancing and going out and drinking on Saturday nights. And I often tell people I grew up in the 60s, sex, drugs, rock and roll. What a life. I didn't do any of that crap, man. I just ran.
You trained.
Yeah.
Could you tell that Bill had that type of talent, though?
People ask that question all the time, and the honest answer, of course, is no.
Right.
You can't ever say that you predicted he was going to win Boston and New York 4 times. He had talent. Sure, he had talent.
But a lot of
to-
people have
A
talent.
lot of people have talent, and take it to the level that he eventually did, that was an eye-opener.
To surprise you, to see him become what he became?
Of course it did.
Yeah.
Because I used to wipe his ass, But
I love that. I like that.
But I knew he was talented, but I never knew he would apply himself, and that came first. And as he applied himself, then that just burnished the talent he had until he went to the top.
Watching, and when did you get involved with Runner's World?
Runner's World is 1978. I've been with Runner's World since 78.
Okay. And when you look at the changes in running, from the infusion of women, the fact that the sport has been so open to wheelchair athletes, amputees, and it's so many people with other challenges, what are you proudest of? Because you've been between you and Bart and what Runner's World has done over the years.
Sure.
You've been the leaders. You've been the sort of our megaphone for the
Sure.
sport. What are you proudest of in terms of what running has achieved?
Well, I would have to say that the thing I'm proudest of and what we're celebrating this year at Boston is 50 years of women.
Yes.
Bobby Gibb, 1966. My first Boston is 1965. There's not a single woman in the field.
Yes.
And then Bobby runs the next year, and we all know where it goes from that. It's
Right.
13,000 women on Monday. It's just unbelievable. But you're absolutely right. That was just the tip of the iceberg that could eventually open up to everyone. And when I was running, there were no wheelchairs. There were no handicapped athletes
No.
that I remember. Honestly, I don't remember blind athletes. I remember we had one-armed athletes, and we had
Sure.
a few strange people out there because we were all freaks and weirdos anyway in the 60s.
Right.
I mean, we were all kind of regarded as crazy people. So, but the sport is democratic, and it's opened up, and I think it's led the way to women's sports, to challenged athlete sports, and
Yes.
has really been a wonderful conduit to social change in this country. More than athletic change, social change.
equal opportunity abuser, right?
There should absolutely be. The roads are open. If you can ambulate down the roads on wheels
you're
or
open.
anything,
Yeah,
I say find a division, make all the divisions work together. We don't want, conflict and collisions on the
Right.
course, but there are ways to do that, especially now with waves and ships and all the things we have.
Are you surprised at the evolution of our sports? Or if you look at what I call the endurance entertainment marketplace
Yeah.
right now with running, triathlon, cycling, but also Tough Mudder, Spartan Race, Warrior Dash, Color Run. There's so many different ways to get a number on and get people in our world. Are you surprised at the growth and the public acceptance of endurance?
Well, yes. I mean, anyone who claims they're not surprised by the variety of events out there, things even 10 years ago that you and I could not have imagined.
Right.
I mean, triathlon comes along and I'm like, geez, what kind of weird, crazy thing is this? But I mean, we've gone to all sorts of lengths now and people running 7 continents in 7 days or whatever they do. And I say, the world is big, endurance is an essential part of life, and let's open up and see what people can what events people can create, and then the athletes will definitely challenge themselves to do those events.
What are some of your favorite moments from your history of running?
Whoa. Okay, so I'm fairly marathon-centric,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Of course. One of my favorites that comes to mind very quickly is Joan Benoit winning Boston in '83, and that crazy time. She goes through the half marathon in 1:08 something, comes in 2:21. We all know that she's now on a track to make it to the Olympic marathon and to run well in Los Angeles, but that unfolds as a dream come true, first with her injury, her knee surgery, and her victory in the Olympic trials, and then I was fortunate enough to be in the Coliseum in LA in '84 when she comes in and wins the first women's Olympic marathon. And I'm supposed to be an unbiased journalist, but I mean, I had tears on. Yeah, of course, when that happened.
So when you look at where running is now, what do you see for the future?
I see a big future. I see a continued unfolding and evolution. I think the women's influence is just going to grow and grow and grow, which is going to make it ever more a family and extended sport. I see wonderful new kinds of relay races that people can put together families and things like that. I've got one of my own, and I think that human creativity and human challenge and human evolution will continue to lead us to new events and great champions.
So when you're out there on Monday, which you've been, now this will be what number for you at this race?
It's my 22nd, I believe.
22nd.
Right.
Wow. When you're out there running it, what are the parts of the course that you look forward to, that you like the best?
I look forward to getting the traditional big checkpoints. I look forward to Framingham because you got a quarter of the race from there. Everybody looks forward to Wellesley. I look forward to the hills because that means you're beginning to hit the tough stuff, and you always want to put the tough stuff behind you.
Yes.
Getting to the top of Heartbreak Hill is a big thrill always. And then, the turn on to Hereford and then Boylston, there's nothing like being so close that you actually know you're going to make it. That's a thrill. The draw, the magnetic pull of the crowds and the noise at that point is incredible. And I must add that a big part of the race for me now is up here because, I'm older, I'm slower,
Sure.
I don't train 100 miles a week, so the race is a real challenge. But you bring back the memories of all the people who have inspired you through your life, the family members you're running for, all the other people who have run Boston through the years. And, it's the brain that gets you to the finish line. It's not your legs.
I love the fact that you've run the Manchester Road Race 53. You won it 9 times.
Right.
You've run it 53 times in a row.
I've run 53 times in a row on Thanksgiving Day, and I tell people that anyone can get lucky and win the Boston Marathon once, and I did. But you don't run 53 years in a row on luck. That takes some sticking with it, going through hard times, running with injuries, running with walking pneumonia, running with an incredible intestinal disease that I had 2 years ago where actually threw me into a psychiatric hospital with depression because of one of these microbiome diseases that you hear about. Fortunately, the body heals and you come back and you're healthy again. So you learn to bounce back.
When you think ahead, to the 50th anniversary of your win and running again at that point. Any thoughts on what it's going to feel like to be coming down the finish chute, knowing that 50 years ago you won this race, and more importantly, that you're still doing this race?
Well, I'm not counting my eggs ahead of time. I can guarantee you that there have been two runners, I believe, Old John Kelly and Keizo Yamada, the Japanese, who ran on the 50th anniversary of their victories. And I would be thrilled to be number 3 on that list and to make it there myself. But it's it's entirely a personal challenge at this point. Nobody's waiting for the world to roll out a red carpet and acknowledge us. It's only about what's going on inside of you and continuing to stick at it because you believe in endurance, because you believe in the active lifestyle.
You've traveled the world doing this wonderful sport we get to cover. What race do you love that a lot of people don't know much about?
Well, I don't know that people don't know much about any of the places that I've been to. I haven't been to bizarre ones. I guess I've been lucky enough to run the Comrades Marathon in South Africa twice. And I have to say that is the world's greatest foot race to me because of the incredible traditions that they have down there, reversing the course so you run downhill one year and uphill the next year, giving people special color-coded numbers when they've reached 10 years and a different color when they reach 20 and things like that. You ask people, I got to South Africa, I said, what's your personal best time? What's your PR in Comrades? Nobody knows. It doesn't count. It's not like marathon PRs. The only thing that matters is how many times have you finished Comrades. They all know I've done it 8 times, I've done it 28 times. They are all in it for going the distance, finishing, and coming back and doing it again. I think that's a great thing.
Well, and it's amazing, too, because you got, north of 20,000 people doing, it's not a marathon, it's a double. Right?
It's a double marathon. And
that's unbelievable.
Like Boston, it's hilly when it goes downhill, and it's twice as hilly when it goes uphill.
Yeah.
And they're all large Dutch beer-drinking guys,
yes,
but they get out there
it.
and they get through it. They, again, it's all here.
What I love about that race is, we have the Ironman and we have the Boston finish line, and certainly there's cutoff times.
Sure.
But there's no more brutal cutoff time when you basically close the door to the stadium and don't let people in if they don't make the cutoff time.
Well, both times I've run, everybody stays for that moment because that is the most dramatic moment. Because 1 second you see a guy who's going to get into the stadium and continue and get his finisher's medal, and the next second the gate goes down and that person doesn't exist, isn't in the results, gets no medal. They've been out there running for 12 hours for nothing.
Done.
Yeah, done.
Wow. Have you talked to any of those guys afterwards?
I've talked to a few of them, and they just say, listen, I'm going to come back next year and try and make it next year.
I love it. Amby, thanks so much for taking time. Always great to catch up. You're such a treasure to the sport. I love chatting with you.
Well, great to see you too, Bob, and I'm glad you're doing this. It's a great gig, and it's always wonderful to chat with you.
Love it. Amby Burfoot, 1968 Boston Marathon champion, has been our guest. Hold on, everyone. We will be right back.